Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of From the Field. As a remembering, From the Field is a show from the technical team from New Zealand. And here today we have one of my colleagues, Jalak. Welcome to the show, Jalak.
Thanks, Eduardo. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you. So, for everyone jumping in right now, they don't know you, they will try to connect on LinkedIn with you. Can you just introduce yourself, what you're doing here at AWS New Zealand?
Sure. So you can see, like, my full name is Chalak Modi. Please feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. And I'm a solutions architect based out of Auckland, New Zealand. And yeah, solutions architect is like my day-to-day life now.
That's great. And prior to AWS, where did you work? Where is your background came from?
Oh, that's a long list. So I was in Deloitte before joining Amazon, and I was working as a senior consultant, again with AWS technologies. Then before that, I was in Singapore, and before that, I was in India, working with
Wow.
different companies. Uh, so I can say I've worked with like most of my life with consulting companies, and now working with Amazon. It's like a complete change.
That's great. Such a rich story. You have been across the world pretty much.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because one thing that I saw in the last few weeks is you have been part of an initiative on AWS called She Builds. So what is She Builds? Could you tell us?
Yeah. So She Builds is, in a nutshell, a 12-week internship program that is to empower and inspire college students, like inspire women who are looking towards technology and to give them some perspective from the ground what working in a technology company looks like. I need more
Yeah,
women. I-
yeah, there you go. This is the invite. Come on, people.
yeah.
Let's just apply for the roles here at AWS New Zealand, and we'll be happy to guide and mentoring you in the journey.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Jalak. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really happy to have you in the show today. And I see here on your slides you have best practices for security at scale. I think that's really important. Can you give us just a brief about what we will see today?
Yeah. So yeah, originally, when people ask me like, what is security, why security is important, and how they can use security or apply security in their organization, so I thought like this is good, a good conversation topic for security people, and not even security people, like operations engineers, everybody who is working day to day life and having uh, a high level of security and understanding the best practice is really important. Yeah, so today will
Absolutely.
be,
Yeah, it's top priority for us here at AWS, right?
yeah. So I have a slide for that, but I can share right now that security. We used to say like security is job zero, but then people
Mhm,
with because we Amazon is global company and different parts of the world it was misunderstood like job
mhm.
zero. So we have now changed it to security is the highest priority.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Having the correct wording and a clear communication is key to reach people on a global scale, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Fan-
Uh,
That's great. So, before we jump in on the presentation, what if you could just mention what is the best way to implement security today?
oh, yes, sure. And I would say security is easy, like very easy. You can implement security with just $5. Like actually that easy.
Re-
Just buy some wire
Really?
cutter. Yeah, just buy some wire cutter. Cut the power cord. Not the network cord. Cut the power cord. Literally the power cord. And the box
Shut
is
down
extremely
everything.
secure.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. Well, okay. I'm really interested to see that work on real life. Fantastic. So over to you, Jalak. And yeah, thank you for being the show.
No problem. Thank you so much. Yeah, so as I said, like, yep, cut the power cord, but you'll have to see, like, is it going to be an useful security for your company, or is it even going to be useful at all? Maybe no, not at all. So now, most of the companies I see, they have a limited budget measured in terms of time, dollars, and people, and they have to move forward. They have to like delight the customers. But with this security, like cutting the power cord will not going to help them. So, thinking of what a security and what a useful security for your engineers and for your customers will look like. Let's discuss those techniques. So the first question people ask me is like, is the system secure? When I meet any customer, they generally ask this, like, are we secure? But maybe I don't know what risk you're facing or how sensitive the data is, and I don't know what compliance requirements you have. So I would, but I would also argue that that's the wrong question to ask. The question I want to ask is like, why security is important to you? What you're, what is that something that you're trying to secure? And it's mostly the data. It's
Hmm.
mostly mostly the company's IP. Every company has something different, and that differentiates them from the market. Something that makes them unique. Something that makes them who they are. And security can be challenging. So, over the last couple of years, I've realized that there is one component that matters the most in this large ecosystem of security, and the security you're trying to build around, and the security you're trying to move forward with speed and velocity. That one component that matters the most is humans.
Oh,
It's
that's interesting.
yeah. So we'll we'll come to discuss later how humans are the most inseparable part of the security. But from a very high top 10,000 foot above, if you see, like, humans do make mistakes. Humans are like
Mhm.
inseparable from mistakes. So let's start with an example.
If it's something that you can assure that will happen is a human making a mistake, right? I have
Yeah,
made a lot of mistakes in my career, so yeah.
yeah, yeah. And everybody does. So humans are all into survivals, and survival can lead to mistakes or can lead to like success, or it can lead to anything. Uh, so let's start with an example of like security of your house. So Eduardo, what will you do to make your house secure? When you leave your house, maybe you close the window, you
Yeah,
will
try.
turn off
Yeah, lock the
blinds,
doors,
lock the
double check
doors.
everything. So I'm a little bit paranoid sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Double check like stove oven is closed, it's turned
Yeah.
off. You don't want to catch fire in the house. And now you
100%. Yeah.
and now you also have like in modern days we also have fire alarms, security alarms, cameras to help with that security. So the analogy I'm trying to use here is security same everywhere. Even each and every
Mhm.
organization has security, and you have a checklist that you follow every day. And that checklist is now so used to, we are so used to of like having this house checklist that now it has become a habit and we don't understand. So what happens if you forget one thing? I would say two things can happen.
Yeah, like replacing the battery on the fire alarm. So I already forgot to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, or maybe you forgot to close the window.
absolutely, yeah, or lock the window because sometimes you just close the window and then you hear the lock and then okay, I think it's locked, but it's not locked. It's just like closed.
Yep,
So yeah, a few things
yep,
like that is really easy to miss. Yeah.
yep. And I would say, so in that scenario, two things will happen. For first thing would be like you double check, but the maximum you will run late to your work, and you
Hmm.
have to move fast. And the maximum will be your boss will be angry for you being late at work, or you stay secure. So many
Makes
organization
sense. Yeah.
face, yeah, and many organization face the same scenario while maintaining and managing security of the infrastructure. They have this binary choice of either moving fast or staying secure. And to uh, so with organization, you will also see like they have this overly complicated process. So it will be Mostly like they with this human speed they can just ensure one thing.
Yeah, so this is where they are kind of stuck with even trying to innovate inside the company because they are so focused to be secure that they cannot move fast enough to innovate in the market and have new ideas and things like that, right?
Right, right. So, and we'll discuss those techniques like how you can have both. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, we'll be there soon. So here, let's get start with another example. So I have Bill. So hi, Bill. Bill has been given this amazing infrastructure, and Bill, so somebody created this infrastructure, and Bill is now asked to manage, and that's what happens in most of the engineers' life. Somebody created something, and they don't know, they can't even do git blame because on top of it, their name might add as well. So what they do is like now Bill is thinking, if I make any change in this infrastructure, will it break? I don't have to innovate on a production environment, but I also don't want things to break. But he's thinking now like nothing has ever happened, so nothing will ever happen. But if you see in this scenario, I would say a lot can happen. And now there
And
was
this is a simple architecture, right? If
this, yeah.
if you it's a really small workload, and you see here, you are telling us that there's a lot of issues that could happen on this simple workload, right?
Yep, yep. There is like just one web server has a data server that is their application, and then S3 bucket storing their website images, and their data backup is also in another S3, and it's all in one VPC and in one account, and it's open to internet. So this application is running on a older version of Node.js, and Bill is now afraid if he update it to a latest version, it might break it. The application might not work. So he is not changing anything. He's like, it is working. I am safeguarding it. I don't know how, but I'm safeguarding it, and it will just keep on running. It will never fail. I don't want to patch it. I don't want to add another extra layer. It's just working.
He
And
doesn't want to challenge the status quo, right?
yeah, and if an outsider comes in, uh, he would have been applauded, but there is no outsider, and nobody has challenged him yet. So I would say like bad things can happen if you do bad job running in the cloud. And one
Like
day
everywhere,
it
right?
was
Not only in the cloud. Yeah.
anywhere, yeah, yeah. So one day was Bill's bad day, and that day has come,
Oh
and there
boy.
was an intruder who came from the internet, accessed the application because it was open to the world. It was perfect for the intruder to come in. Also accessed the database servers because there was no like the access key, secret key, the username, password was all available in clear text in the web server. So it just accessed it. Also access the S3 bucket, access the data
Oh
backup,
my.
change the policy, and then downloaded the data. And now imagine like what
Well,
what a company will look like after this has
okay.
happened.
Absolutely. I think the company and the customer they would be really surprised that all of that happened with just one entry point from the web server, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's always the one thing that is like with low security. There is just one access point. Same with your house analogy. Just one window is open and anything can happen. I'm
Yeah,
not.
that's
I
true.
don't want to fear you, but we have to make sure that every point is covered. We have a checklist, and we make sure we don't skip that checklist.
All right, let's see it.
Yeah. So now we have the security team came in and started looking at what was the issue, and there was no application protection. between the internet and the web server. There was no segmentation between the accounts, like the public facing accounts and a private account, internal one. It was all in one account. All There were too many permissions given to the necessary S3 bucket. It should be just a GET request. Allowing all doesn't make sense. Also, too many permissions given to all the S3 buckets. So that's why there was another S3 bucket also open. It was no encryption. Even if people download the data, they can have it in clear text. And overall, there was no logging, monitoring, and alerting. If something happens, they will not even know that it has happened until somebody tweets on Twitter saying, I have your data, all your production
So they
data, all
they
your
they
customers.
they went public. They went public with the data, right?
Yep, yep, yep. And
So
that's
one thing
crazy.
that oh yeah, that's the worst nightmare for any company. So one thing that you mentioned in the beginning, like is the security team came to analyze the application. So that happened after the breach, right? So
Yeah.
there, this scenario have improved. Do you see a trend where the security, either a security team or security checkpoints, are now a part of Bill's life, for example, that they work, or is you still have the segmentation of like the product team and security team, and silos with different responsibilities?
Yeah. So with some organization, I'm still seeing that, but it has come to an improvement with cloud.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'm seeing they work in silos. Security team doesn't talk to product team or engineers, and sometimes engineers get the workaround. Like, like having a usable security is so important. Like if a security team is setting a very high bar that everything should be like at this stage and a 14-page policies, the engineer is not going to work with that. An engineer will say, oh, I have to make this work, and there is an exceptions, and they get like hundreds of exceptions, and in the end it allows everything. So a usable security, that will be talking next, like how a usable security can be applied to work with the engineers, like security people and engineers can work together. And security is everyone's job. It's not just one security person. That's not possible.
Oh, that's great. Let's see it.
Yes. So now we have Alice, who is going to save Bill's day. Uh, so what Alice proposed, that there should be separate accounts to reduce the blast radius. One account for staging, one account from production. Each and every patch should be first tested on production, on staging, and then applied to production. Even within production, you should have multiple accounts to separate your data, like public facing and internal facing. Then allow. So the next thing is having IAM roles and secrets manager. So use IAM roles between your EC2 and S3. So you don't have to create long holding access key and secret key credentials stored in your EC2. Don't do that. Have temporary credentials with IAM role with limited access to what the application is doing. Maybe just getting the images. Just have get access, nothing else. And use secrets manager for managing your database credentials. So you can also rotate your credentials with uh, rotate, change password, and it's just one API call to get the credentials from secrets manager. So there are no credentials saved in the machine. And third thing is have MFA and single sign-on for our engineers to log in into any any web application or even the production account. So the first, there are two things here. First is logging into your AWS account should be with the corporate. Uh, it could be Active Directory, Auth0, or SAML based any login. So any login that you use for your corporate login, integrate it to AWS account. So people don't have to manage two password, and it you don't want them to be saved somewhere below their laptop. So you want them to have just one password that they can log in into AWS account as well. And add MFA and extra added security. Second, log in into the web servers or the application servers. There should not be any login. Don't use systems manager. Uh, don't allow 22 at all. Use systems manager if you have to log in into EC2 or any of your applications.
Try to
Yep,
remove credentials from the environment, right?
yep, yep. No credentials at all. So now now Alice has added, removed that one account and created two separate account, external and internal. Then there are IAM rules for providing temporary access to AWS resources. Then SSO and MFA for your developers, engineers to log in, and secrets manager to store, manage, even rotate and retrieve the database credentials safely without any code deployments. So if you want to get credentials from your database, you don't have to like store it in clear text in your application. Just and one API call and you get the credentials.
Is everything automated and secure, right?
Yes, it is all automated. The second best practice is logging and monitoring. So starting with that, turn on logging. Use CloudTrail and Amazon Guard Duties. CloudTrail will tell you the all the actions that are happening by a user, role, or service, and have Guard Duty for threat detection. Like it continuously monitors malicious activity or unauthorized behavior in your account. Enable uh, Security Hub and Config for monitoring and alerting. So Security Hub is, you can consider it as one comprehensive view or just one dashboard that aggregates all of your security findings from it across multiple AWS accounts just at one place. So you know what is happening if your resources are compliant, not compliant. And config will do the job. Config will assess and audit the resources. So if there is any change, you will know it that config will record it, and you can get alerts that somebody has changed the security group, somebody has added port 22 that you are not supposed to add. And lastly, making sure that logs are stored in separate bucket. There should be a separate account where you are storing your CloudTrail logs, config logs. It should be all in a separate account.
And one thing that I see here, I think is a really common approach, is being proactive with what happened inside the systems, right? Because CloudTrail, AWS config, they can enable you to trigger action from whatever alert or change that happened on your system, right?
Yep, yep, yep. So that's the job of all these services. So as I said, like if anything changes, um, the example I was giving, like from eight, there was somebody added a port 22 in your security group for your web server. You will get an alert instantly that somebody has changed it, and you can even automate in that it will automatically remove the port. Uh,
Yeah, you can trigger
one
a lambda to look in that and remove the part, right?
Yep, yep. So one interesting thing I've seen with an organization is what they were doing is if somebody if somebody do something suspicious that is not allowed within the security policies they have, it will notify them on Slack, giving them some time to remediate, and it's all automated security. So, for example, somebody has made the S3 bucket public, knowingly or unknowingly made it public. CloudTrail config will find out that some change has happened, and it will trigger a Lambda using CloudWatch events, and will check from CloudTrail that who has made the change. Then that Lambda will notify the person on Slack that this S3 bucket has been made public by you. Please remove it or please remediate. And if the person doesn't respond in like 5 or 10 minutes, it will auto remediate and make the S3 bucket private again. And that I'm seeing like with a lot of organization that they are not um using humans to do all of this, just automating
Mhm.
everything, not depending on humans to fix the problems.
Yeah, and that makes sense because the system will be automated and you can remove that maintenance, that burden of actually reacting to a few things. And there you go, yeah.
Yeah. So, yep, having all this service to automate and remediate if there are any, uh, if Bill had a bad day. Okay, so best practices for infrastructure security. Use CloudFront, Shield, and services like WAF for threat prevention. So CloudFront is our CDN, and it's the most cost-effective distributed content layer for like low latency and high data transfer speed. We have 230 plus worldwide POPs locations available. Shield is for DDoS, uh, preventing from DDoS attacks. I would not say preventing, protection from DDoS attacks. And the the best thing is
And we
it's
have
free to
we
use.
have yeah, we have two different levels there, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the Shield Basic comes for free, and Shield Advance is it's it comes with like some cost, but Basic is free. Just turn it on, and any frequently occurring network or transport layer DDoS attacks to your website or application, you will know it. And enable WAF that gives you control like how traffic reaches from your application to like the from from the front layer to your application, and you can actually prevent most common attacks like SQL injection or cross-site scripting. Then second part, separating the network zones. Have security group for each EC2 instance or a set of EC2 instances. If you have multiple web servers, have one security group only for web servers allowing one particular thing. For database, a different um, security group. So you can control what inbound and outbound traffic should be allowed, not allowed. And last, not not the least, have patching and scanning. So make sure that your servers are always up to date, patched, and maintaining a good regime. So now we have within these accounts we have VPC and security group, and for the front layer we have CloudFront, WAF, and Shield applied. So before traffic goes to hits our web server, it is going through
Mhm.
CloudFront, WAF, and Shield.
So we have three extra protections on the edge, right?
Yeah, that is so correct. Last but not the least is our data protection. So encrypt data at rest. Use KMS to create your encryption keys. Use KMS like it's the most used service, I would say. People don't realize it because it's just available with one tick, but it's the most powerful and used service. Encrypt everything. Encrypt your S3 buckets, your EBS, your EFS, any layer where you will be storing data at rest. Encrypt it. Use server side encryption to manage keys, like even data going. Uh, you can have your own keys You can bring them, and you can bring them in AWS and manage it by yourself, like, and use KMS for that as well. Lastly, certificate manager for managing your SSL TLS certificate. It is such a powerful service that you don't have to like you don't have to go through a manual and long process of purchasing, uploading, and renewing your SSL TLS certificate. Certificate manager will do it for you, all automatic. You just have to provide the endpoint, and it integrates with uh, CloudFront, ELB, and API gateway. Okay, so now we have all four, the full security chart available. It's still
Complete
not all
different
the
chart, right?
completely different chart. Yeah, it's not all the AWS security service.
Mhm.
Still, we have a lot more. And now I remember a saying from Jeff Bezos. He mentioned that like good intentions don't work, mechanism do. So this is a mechanism of all the good intentions we want to do.
That's
Now,
100% correct. If you have systems and mechanisms to help you automate and have the visibility around your security, it can help you set up a better infrastructure, application, and even a traffic flow inside your AWS environment with a high level of protection. So mechanisms, people add mechanisms
yes, yes, add automation everywhere. Now
everywhere.
with Yeah, so now you might be thinking, like, if people watching this might be thinking, like, this is a lot, and the security guys will be thinking, oh, now let's have everything. Let's set the bar like at this high, very high, that
And double that.
it and double that, like, yeah, and some it will be awesome, like the security will be the best, a least privilege firewall policy, least privilege IAM policy, everything will be super detailed, super complicated. And but when you think from an engineer perspective, it might become so complicated that uh, for every single change, there will be you'll have to see the implications of the change on your firewall policy and IAM policy, or change on any single thing, and that super bar will might just drop, and people will find work around it, or maybe at one day you will have like no security at all, and that's
It's
possible,
the
and that
opposite, right? Yeah.
that's yeah, yeah. So this, I would say, there are three stages of cloud maturity, because over time it also happen you run the risk of having no security, like the actual delivered system security could be dropping and so dropping that this beautiful policies that you have created, but people didn't understood, and all those meaningful changes that they asked you to do, now they made a lot of changes, a lot of exceptions, and no security, and like everybody's sad now. So instead of that, I would say set a realistic bar and maintain that bar over time. I'm not saying like don't have all the security, but have a minimum security level that you want to start with. And
Mhm.
because you can't prevent bad things from happening, but you can, but that way you will also prevent good things from happening. And the next amazing idea from your team, or from a developer that started and also stopped because there was a lot of security around it, and there was a lot of process to start that idea, and he's like, oh, let's leave it, I don't want to do it because it's a lot to go through, a lot of processes to go through. So start applying small manual best practices and make it work end to end. And end to end will look like you have started one small thing, then scripted it, put automated controls around it, and then made it so automated that now your engineers and developers are aware that they have to follow the process always. Uh, an example I want to give here is, uh, you know, previously I was talking about encryption. So having encryption at S3 and EBS. What if you start encryption? If you prevent people from not creating unencrypted resources, it's a very good security. You should never allow people creating unencrypted EBS volumes. But because your engineers are not aware of it, they don't know like how to encrypt or what to do, even if it's a small thing. Start with detective controls. So when somebody creates an unencrypted EBS volume or S3 bucket, you have a detective control that will notify you that somebody has created uh, an S3 bucket without encryption. You work with them and uh, make them understand that how they can have a S3 bucket encryption or EBS encryption always. And once your organization, your engineers have reached a point where they know how they can automate, they know whenever they are creating a developer or test machines, they can apply encryption automatically. Then make it preventive control and apply it with a secure control policy, SCP policy, that no EBS or S3 is allowed without encryption. But you have to
I,
start with a reasonable bar of detective and going to a preventive control.
Yeah, I really love this idea because you share the knowledge about what is security, how you apply encryption in this case. And you can imagine that from a developer point of view, will be different layers of security, right? You mentioned about automated security, scripted security. So we have three stages here, and it will make easy for the whole team to understand how and when we are moving between stage one, stage two, and stage three. If you share the
Yeah,
knowledge, everyone will be on the same page, right?
yeah, totally. And security is everyone's job. Uh, so when you think like if you think it other way around, for when you have this web server, application server. So for engineers, it's like multiple servers, but from a company and culture perspective, it's people as well, and those people will be making decisions that what container service to use, to how a flow from a user to the application will happen. And if you think like all these decisions has to be made from a security person, your company can't scale. Like
Yep.
if they have just one security person across the whole organization, or maybe even
Yeah.
multiple ones, uh, the gap, if you will see 200 employees, four security people or five security people, that's it.
The
And if
balance is
each and
uneven, right?
yeah, and if each and every review in your organization is going to going through a person who has security in their job title, it is going to affect the organization. It will not be giving them speed. So start with some services, like as I mentioned, start with detective control and make it happen. Start with services like guard duty, shield, WoW, so where you don't have to stop your developers, you don't have to stop your engineers to do things. Start with something and work with your engineers, add them gradually, like maybe one or two things every month, and at the end of it you will have like an amazing team and with amazing security policies, all the security services that you were thinking in mind.
And not
So
only security will be automated, but the team will be able to innovate with security
with
built
security,
in the system. Yeah.
yeah. So uh, here I would also want to add, like, run some tabletop simulation games, like have a game day. So in the Bill previous scenario, where Bill had a bad day, so run those type of scenarios internally with your team. So what will happen if somebody tweets like that your production data is with them, or it has been deleted, or it has been made public. So what the engineers will do, have a day, like maybe once or twice a year, to just discuss security, to run some games around it, and see what your engineers are thinking, how will they will identify that what resources has been impacted, how they will respond to it, they will recover from the incident, and how you're secure, how your company will automate this process and regularly test this process, like the way you are testing your DR solutions.
Don't make it just a playbook. Test it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It should not be a car sitting in your garage. Yeah. So before, when we were talking about move fast and stay secure, now we have move fast and stay secure, because now your engineers are on board, your security teams are on board, and everybody is no like everything is automated. They don't have to do one playbook and solve the problem.
No more manual process, right?
No more manual process. And at AWS, as I said previously, security is our highest priority, and we have like different multiple AWS services purpose built for each thing, like IAM for identity access management. We have breadth and depth of services. I'm not going to in detail of each of the service, but have a look at those services. So you can find all those details from well architected framework, cloud security page, and CS benchmark. So the links are here. Please have a look at the security services. Please have a look at well architected framework. It has a specific pillar for security. Run through with your team and look at a bare minimum. I would suggest have CIS benchmark applied to your organization, and all the sources can be found here on these links. So awesome. Now we have Ruben from
Uh,
Integrity Technologies. So Ruben, I'm seeing Ruben working with security a lot. So I thought like maybe he can share some knowledge on how they are applying security and how it is important for them. And will
sharing experience from the field, right? Because he's on the trenches with the customers, right?
yeah, so he's working with customers. He's one of our partners. I will let him introduce like properly. But for now, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Sayonara.
Fantastic. That's great. Jalak, thank you so much for this talk. I learned a lot, and I really like how Bill and Alice actually worked. So, to close the show, do you have any message that you want to share with everyone about security? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn? Are you on LinkedIn? So, yeah.
Yeah, yes, I am definitely on LinkedIn. Just search Jhalak Modi Amazon and you will find me. And the message I want to give back is don't get afraid of security. Just start with something and work it out end to end. Start with the small thing and work with your team. And it should not be just one person a security team job. It should be each and every individual, engineers, developers, operations, and even at a very high level, like it should come from the very high organization saying we want we want this, we want to be compliant, we want to be best and best.
Working on that every day, right? Step by
Yes,
step.
step by step, but working on it, setting a bar at a level where it can grow, not dropping down, just growing high. Yeah.
And we are here to help, right? If anyone needs a resource or maybe guidance or talk about it, we are on LinkedIn. You can search for Jalak, you can search for me on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you for joining, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, Jalak. See you next
Thank you
time.
so
Bye bye.
much. See ya. Bye.
Thank you for the presentation. Great analogies on security. I love it. And I see now we have a special guest coming, joining us here on the stream. Can you introduce him for us?
Sure. So we have Ruben from Integrity Technology. Uh, so actually, I will let Ruben introduce himself like in a proper way. He is super awesome in security. So Ruben, all over to you.
All right, thanks, Jalak. Thanks for bringing me along to this presentation. I think it's a good presentation you've done, and I'm more than happy to answer some of your questions. But before that, let me give a brief about me. My name is Ruben. I've been in the IT industry for over 20 years. Initially, my first 15 years was predominantly in utility sector in various markets. I've worked in the US market, New Zealand, Australasian market, and in various roles. So that's how I've come around from an enterprise background. The last 5 years, really, I've moved away from enterprise and working really with small to medium businesses using my experience in the enterprise world, try to deliver IT solutions to their required business needs.
That's
So
a
internally,
big change. Wow. I'm
yeah,
really curious
yeah.
to see this history behind that.
So we actually we are originally the company has been in the Malaysian market for 20 odd years. We started as a web hosting company, and over a period of time, we've evolved our business. The New Zealand presence have started by myself and my colleague, who's also a ex-colleague for the Malaysian side of the business. He migrated to New Zealand, and we decided to start a business, and that's where we've worked on. Really, our approach to IT solutions for small to medium industries is really being pragmatic and being cost effective and trying to manage their the their requirements and also deliver the outcomes they want.
Cool.
That is fantastic. So for this fireshed, we have some prepped questions, and but my main idea here is to have that as a informal chat. So we are here to just discuss best practices around security in the cloud on a small, medium, and enterprise scale. So Jalak, you had us for almost over an hour on the presentation. So what do you have in mind right now that we can, fire up to Ruben to help us understand a little bit more the scenario around security?
Yeah, so Ruben is working a lot with FSI customers. So I'm thinking to ask him some questions around what do you think, like, are your customers afraid of security or are they afraid of like doing something new? What's blocking them?
I think, in general, I don't think so. Businesses are afraid of security. I think security is forefront of people's mind nowadays, with a lot of, ransomware attacks, phishing, all sorts of things. I think it's all in forefront. The driver, I suppose, for a lot of businesses is understanding the risk and the cost associated with implementing some of those IT security. I take it as a risk cost appetite approach. Some customers, where they have the funds, they will spend more, and some that don't, they'll spend less. I think, from my perspective, what we do with our customers is really identify where they are on their risk ladder, identify what is, prioritization of those risks, and understanding and walking through them around the risk that's associated with what we've identified, the cost that's associated with implementing some of those risks, and really putting a plan forward. A lot of businesses that I work, we start with an IT maturity model. And based on where on the IT maturity model, we kind of assess what they can and can't do. One of the biggest things I think we've focused on as we build a relationship and a partnership with our clients, we've got more influence in getting IT security, especially for medium to large enterprise organization, into the leadership, the board view, and making security is a focus of one of the key focus within the business, and really trying to drive in that front.
That's an interesting change that you need to do from a process perspective and also an implementation perspective, right? And on this scenario that you are working with a small and medium business to enterprise, how we can effectively implement the cloud strategy from a security point of view?
So I think what I do with small to business, medium businesses is really the approach of going through, looking at their people, processes, and technology, understanding what they have got today, understanding what is their appetite to drive some of these changes, and then really coming up with a short-term roadmap, a mid-term roadmap, and a long-term roadmap. I think if you really try and break it down into those three key spaces, I think you'll get more traction, as I said. And as business grow and they get more revenue and they get funding, you kind of accommodate some of those kind of things. Some people, like, like what we do in our some clients, where we have an IT budget or IT operational budget, we take a slice of it and say certain percentage really should be focused on IT security, or they have an IT development roadmap. We say certain part of it is part of IT security, or when they're developing new things, we also look at how we can leverage IT security to do those kind of things. But I think I suppose the key driver I do have to people who are listening on this video is everyone does take IT seriously. It's just you need to manage clients' expectation and really take them on a journey. It's not something you can just simply come tomorrow and say, "Oh, we got a whole lot of things we can sell to you. How about you buy 5 things?" It just doesn't work that way nowadays. People, in this tough market with COVID and all that, you really need to be mindful of how you're handling these things.
Absolutely. Security is top priority for us here at AWS, right, Jalak?
Yeah, yeah. Yep, and that's what we covered in our slide as well. Like security is the highest requirement for us. So actually, I have like one more question for you. So how do you make sure that security is enabled for your customers in the cloud?
So I suppose this is where we partner with AWS. I suppose we've been working with AWS. Me, myself, I've been in the AWS tech space for about 7-8 years now. We started with one client, and then we've just grown from there. And also what we've done is over the years, AWS has grown their services, and that's how we've kind of leveraged it. We use things like guardrails, we use WAF, we use AWS config, we use encryption, KMS keys, identity management. So those are really some of the core things we really drive to deliver security from a cloud perspective. As I said, partnering with AWS allows us to really focus on the service side and not worry about the infrastructure. So, in an enterprise world, if I were to take my 15 years or 20 years experience, those days you look at the infrastructure, the hardware that we need to implement from an IT perspective. It's a much longer roadmap. Time to take it to market is a lot longer. With partnering with AWS in a cloud, we can speed that process up, and it gives us the capabilities to grow. And there are times where I've started very small with security, and we've tried to focus. Our key thing is data protection. So encryption of the data, encryption of the REST services that people authenticate. So there's that, and then we've moved to other greater and bigger things that's come along in the AWS platform.
That's true.
Fantastic. I really liked how you said like patterning up with AWS can speed up the development of security of infrastructures in the cloud, because I believe a lot of customers and people still think that security is this big back blocks that you don't know what's happening and can take a lot of time to implement. Do you see any trends in the market right now from a security perspective is being more part of the the day-to-day work of customers or even development teams across the business? Yeah. Go.
Yeah. Okay. So to my earlier conversations, I think security is in everyone's forefront. The thing that we want to do, or I see in the market nowadays, people do want to go into the security. It's just the journey that takes them there, or the path that takes them there. They find it sometimes is challenging. And if you find the right people or the right resources to take you through that process and that journey, I think it becomes more meaningful. And as I said, to me, security is always an evolving thing. You're going to have always threats in the market, and you always want to do data protection. So it's an evolving thing that you should work with your partner, or we essentially work with your ID team, and don't think of them as a barrier to your business. I don't personally think IT go out there to make it a barrier day one that we want to just protect everything. I think we do it for a reason, just to protect the reputation of the business, the investment the people put into the business. I think it's a on-encompass thing. So it's a balance of budget, leadership, even from the board, that we get those some of those directions and directive makes a lot of difference in when you're trying to do IT security.
That's great. I could put on better words than that.
Okay. So my last question to Ruben, What will be your message to the community, to the listeners today?
I suppose I'll focus my answers in two ways. So I think if you're a end client, really try and make sure you put some emphasis on security, meaning have the right people in the right places for who can lead the security questions and understand from a business perspective what needs to be done, and from a security perspective what's in it. You can find a person that has a balance between both. I think you'll find the right security model and security. Uh, Sometimes also having the right leadership from a board level to drive some of this stuff, and the accountability to make sure security is important to the business is one of the things that I would say. I think from a tech company, I think what I would say, I think security is in the forefront for everyone, from partners to competitors. I know we might, from a competitive perspective, we might work on different pricings, different, trying to win the next deal, win this. But I think from a security
Yeah.
perspective, as a group, we should be working together to really stamp out security and threats. Because I think if you can achieve that as a group from a partner perspective or a tech company perspective where everyone wins, I think you make it a much safer environment to be working in the internet.
Wow, that's great. So that means if anyone has any hard questions, they can reach out to you on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure Jalak, and I'll give them my details and they can contact me anytime.
Yes,
No,
definitely.
fantastic. Uh, that would be great. Well, from my side, thank you, Ruben, for being here and for sharing these thoughts and trends around the market. That was really, I really appreciate your time here today.
All right. Thanks again for inviting me to this session. It's been really good, Jalak, what you've presented, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people in the community. So thanks again.
Thanks, Ruben, and thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Well, thank you, folks, for joining in and see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.